What's up, duelists? We're back with another regularly scheduled video. Today we're going to be looking at a couple of tournament replays from the Deck Devastators tournament that is currently going on right now. Make sure and check out the Crow's Nest Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel, Crow's Nest Retro Yu-Gi-Oh! Channel for coverage of this tournament. You can watch the matches there. Snack hosts this one, and she's going to be doing coverage for it there. And also, if you want to compete in Edison format at the highest level, RBET Santa Clara is a week from today. There are only about 30 spots left in this main event. You don't want to miss out on it. It's actually one of the sickest opportunities to play Edison format this year, especially with Ultimate Time Wizard getting canceled. So definitely come through. If you're in the area and you are on the fence, get your ticket ASAP. $50 is an incredible price to be able to go to Anime Impulse Collectors Expo and experience the RBET tournament all in one package. It's a deal you can't miss, honestly. These we try to put on for you guys, and it's honestly going to be one of the sickest ones. The play mats look amazing. It's got the Rainbow Absolute Zero. I'm sure you've heard of it. Anyway, let's get into the matches. First match I want to show you guys is Cold Madness versus Sir Charlie. I'm a big fan of Cold Madness. I'm also a big fan of Sir Charlie, but Cold Madness is just a really, really good player. He tops a lot of tournaments online. I believe he's from Europe, and he plays a wide variety of decks. He's one of the few players that's been brave enough to take fairies and top tournaments with it. So, yeah, he plays, I think he's won, did he win an RBET? I'm not sure if he won an RBET or topped an RBET, or I'm not exactly sure. I think he won an RBET with Value Turbo. I could be wrong. I might be wrong about that. He'll comment in the comment section below. But this matchup is going to be Cold Madness on Hero Frog versus Sir Charlie Games on Zombies. And I picked this match out of the tournament because A, it showcases two players who I think are really good, and B, it showcases some of the things that I think are actually bad in the zombie deck. And most recently, I took a zombie deck to the PPG 5K in Texas, and I made a lot of changes to the deck based off of these few cards that I just wanted to highlight in this match, because I think this match shows it's a really good example of why I think we need to move away from certain cards in the zombie deck. Also, it has some cool gameplay. So on Cold Madness' side, he's got the Trap Dust Shoot, which is obviously where you want to be going first. He's got Rhoda, he's got Brain Control. So Frog Hero deck firing on all cylinders. You got your power one-ups here. Rhoda's going to grab Stratos, Stratos going to grab Ocean, set the Dust Shoot, set the Prison most likely. Yep, that's what it looks like is going to happen. Now, I've noticed a couple of players playing D-Prison in the main deck of Hero Frogs. I'm not a big fan of it. I think D-Prison is like kind of ass, but and it's easy for you to get kind of screwed by having your own D-Prison, but some people really do like it and they've had some success with it. So we'll see. I don't know. I know people are definitely playing it in the Dupless build a little bit more now. Sir Charlie's got a pretty strong hand here. He's got Stratos. He does have double Diva, but you'll notice this card here, D-Prison. This is a card I'm not a fan of in Zombies. I actually think it's quite bad in Zombies. While I think it's still questionable how good it is in Hero Frogs, it's definitely bad in Zombies. From my experience, this is a card that is very easy to play around. If your opponent is attacking you, you're kind of getting what they want anyway. It's going to trigger your Pyramid Turtle. It's going to trigger your Mystic Tomato if you play that card, or Giant Rat if you play that card. So, like, you kind of want your opponent to be attacking you, and you kind of want your opponent's guys to be in play so that you can take advantage of them with Brain Control, Mind Control, possibly Enemy Controller if you're on that updated tech. But yeah, so if you look at this hand and you imagine it with, let's say, an Enemy Controller over this D-Prison, this hand is actually quite insane, because then you can go for, like, you know, Deep Sea Diva, Enemy Controller, take the Stratos, make a 6-star, and then you actually have a play. Whereas D-Prison here isn't really a playmaker. You're D-Prisoning an opener, but that's just like not really getting you progress towards your game state. Zombies doesn't really want to play a simplified game state on the monster side of things. If anything, it wants to play a simplified game state on the back row side of things. Another card you could replace D-Prison with is Trap Stun or Royal Decree. Big fan of those two cards in Zombies as well, especially because Deck Devastation Virus is going to be one of your number one enemies. So here comes that Dust Shoot. It's going to take Stratos, left with Dark Arm, double Diva. So this hand just does nothing. However, Sir Charlie could summon the Diva, get the other Diva out of the deck, set the D-Prison, and hope to top deck something, which looks like that's what's going to happen. Strato Search Ocean could be a couple of different decks. You don't know exactly what it's on, but this was, I believe, round 4 or 5 of the tournament, so Sir Charlie probably knows what Cold Madness is playing at this point. Diva Special Diva, set D Prison, pass the turn. This is only really awkward into, like, I don't know, specifically this. Here comes Space Typhoon, and then attack over the 2 cards. So a lot of power 1-ups here. The Space Typhoon, the Dust Shoot, the Rhoda, putting Cold Madness firmly ahead going first. So pretty strong stuff. Stratos gets redrawn here. Sir Charlie's going to summon Stratos, search Malicious. I don't really like Stratos Malicious in Diva Zombies because you don't have like easy access to Grepher to really convert it. Unlike in Diva Hero where like Grepher's in your deck. I mean, maybe they play Grepher now, I don't know, but usually it's just like too clunky. Getting that Malicious in your hand is like, it's not ideal. Runs over the ocean. And it looks like Cold Madness is kind of set up to take this one over. The whole hand is known. He's got some power cards here. You could kind of go for a bunch of different things. You could go Synchro into Urbellum, attack over the Stratos, threaten to start being annoying that way. You could set your Dupe Frog, maybe get that guy in play. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways you could approach this. You could even Brain Control and then Synchro with this Stratos and deal a bunch of damage and just be like, answer this or you lose. Looks like that's going to be the play here. Normal Junk Synchron. 3,600 and then another 1,300 up to 4,900 damage, which is really big damage. And then Synchros into Black Rose, sets the Mirror Force and passes. Mirror Force is generally not great against zombies, but only if you're able to get on the board. I really don't like Stratos and Malicious. I actually think you're better off playing cards like Giant Rat. Straight up. I think that currently in the metagame, the best way to play zombies is heavy battle recruiters. I think that what's really interesting about the meta is that like it's kind of cycled around to being pretty favorable to battle recruiters provided you can deal with deck dev. And that's why I was saying I really like the Royal Decree and the Trap Stuns because it makes it so that your battle recruiters are just like infinitely sticky. Zombies is ultimately like kind of a worse fairy deck because you just are playing the same sort of battle recruiter game plan, and then your final push is going to be Synchros and like steel cards versus like Christia. And Christia is obviously better. Herald of Orange Light and Honest are obviously better cards, but generally speaking, like it's like similar in a lot of ways. And one of the ways that I found a lot of success in both the Fairies deck and the Zombie deck is like have a way to deal with back row, like Deck Devastation Virus, and then just stick a recruiter. And then most of the meta decks actually can't really deal with that very effectively. Vayu has Raikou Caius, which is a way of dealing with it effectively. But if you can get 2 battle recruiters down, then you're pretty chilling. Or if you can just like swing your Pyramid Turtle into the Raikou and then Book of Life them, it actually puts you in the initiative. So you can regain the initiative into a set Raikou going second thanks to Book of Life on your battle recruiter. And then other decks like Black Wings, Glads, and Hero Frog specifically actually really have a lot of issues dealing with like Pyramid Turtle outside of specifically Caius. So you can also use Pyramid Turtle to crash proactively into common starters like Bora, Shura, Stratos, grab your Ill Blood, set up your graveyard for your Book of Life as early as turn 1, and then Book of Life their guys. So I think that the best way to play zombies is not with Stratos Malicious and not with D-Prison, but more with like Decree and then like Pyramid Turtle and possibly even Giant Rat. Anyway, the draw here is going to be Brain Control, which isn't bad. This could possibly put together a Bryonic. Brain Control takes Stratos. Here comes Normal Diva. Synchro into Bryonic. And then can bounce the Destiny Hero Malicious. Looks like Cold Madness, or not Cold Madness, Sir Charlie's going to make Goyo Guardian. I don't really love this. I think this just loses you the game to like last card Caius here. I think you kind of have to go Bryonic, get the Malicious in the grave, and bounce the Black Rose Dragon. It's just what you have to do here. I don't really think that there's a better way around it. He's going to go Goyo Guardian, decide not to attack, then pass. That's rough, buddy. Set Dupe Frog, pass. There's the Plague Spreader. Another thing that would have made having Bryonic in play here very good. So you could bounce that back row, pitch Plague Spreader, get you closer to setting up the other stuff. Could have even synchroed here with the Plague and the Goyo Guardian into Stardust Dragon and attacked into Black Rose, but maybe a little bit concerned about specifically a second D-Prison instead of a Mirror Force. So that's a reason you might not want to make Stardust here. Setting the Plague is just really unfortunate because it's just going to get run over. And Cold Madness recognizes the lethal that he has access to here. He can go Substitute into Swap Frog, and then he can actually set up a Unifrog by sacrificing that Swap Frog. And then attack for 400. Sir Charlie has now 1 draw step to deal with this Unifrog. Flip Dupe Frog, sack gets another Dupe Frog, so there's the Dupe block, and Sir Charlie needs to deal with this Unifrog in 1 draw step because he's taking a lot of damage this game. Once again, just going Bionic there would have been a better play, but I don't know if it would have been enough. Trap Dust Shoot, terrible draw, just because opponent is already low on resources. I was playing Trap Dust Shoot in my zombie deck, I believe, but yeah, sometimes you do brick on it, and it's nice to get Bionic going because every draw after you get Bionic going is just pressure. It puts them back turns, so... Sack for Malicious, flip, Synchro. Just a really awkward spot to be in. Have to make Stardust and Dark End. You don't even have to make Stardust here. You could just make Dark End, pop the Unifrog. But what you should do is make the Dark End in defense so that the Dupe Frog can't crash into it to get back the Unifrog. Synchros into Dark End. Dark End is summoned in attack position. Dark End pops the Unifrog. And Cold Madness recognizes he can just swing the Dupe Frog into the Dark End Dragon, add back the lethal Unifrog, set the Regeki Break. With intent to pitch the Gores, he now has Mirror Force Regeki Break to deal with any sort of counter push. There's only 2 cards. I believe one of them was potentially draw locked, but it got shuffled away. Dark End's going to pop Dupe Frog, it's going to add back Swap Frog. But there's nothing Sir Charlie can do here. I mean, he's just dead on board to the Unifrog, so that's going to be it for the game. These sub-optimizations, the Stratos, the Mali, and the D-Prison, could have been things like Instant Fusion, Royal Decree, or like draw traps to get him out of that situation, or it could have been like battle recruiters that he could crash into the Stratos, get Ill Blood, get his engine going. And I think lacking those cards, it just makes it really hard to get going with the zombie deck because you don't start the game with a grave setup, and you're like really slow to the grave, basically. Like normal summon Stratos, search Malicious, pass is really not great. Other decks are going to be doing that better, like Diva Hero, for example. The reason I'm saying this is zombies, you didn't even see the zombie part of the deck here, it is because this is like, you don't want to be playing a worse Diva Hero deck. The zombies kind of slow down the Diva Hero deck. So there's that. I think Teleport works a little bit better with Stratos specifically than the Diva cards because summon Stratos, Teleport, get Krebins is actually pretty good because then you can make Bionic there, pitch the Mali, and then well back the Krebins and go from there. But you do see here in game 2 that he is on the zombies. Unfortunately for Sir Charlie, he didn't watch my sideboard guide. I actually don't side in skill drain against Hero Frogs. I sided in against Frog Combo, but I don't side it against Hero Frogs because the only card that you really care about negating is Caius. What you really just want is like either spot removal or engagement with the graveyard or more extenders. And your main deck should be built to extend as much as possible into this matchup. So that's pretty much that. You just want to be able to crash into their Stratos and get your Ill Blood going, and then just spam that Ill Blood with Book of Lives for the rest of the game. Or you want to have access to Instant Fusion and then your Reaper, which can just poke them, hand poke them for the rest of the game. Generally speaking, your effects are better than the Frog Hero effects in this matchup. You want your Caiuses more than they want theirs. And Skill Drain doesn't really do anything into active Absolute Zero, which they have a pretty easy time pulling off. And it costs you life points in the face of discard traps and like sweepers and dust tornadoes, which are going to be pretty common in the post-board games. So I usually don't bring this in, actually, in this matchup. I do bring it in versus Combo Frogs, but not Hero Frogs. D-Prison and Bottomless Trap Hole, 2 cards I'm not super high on. Bottomless, I think, is a little bit better, especially going first. But yeah, once again, D-Prison in this matchup is just not very good. Like, you're, at best, you're going to be hitting a Unifrog, which is like, you already have Skill Drain to deal with that. You already have potentially Mask of Restrict. You already have potentially Mirror Force, like other ways to deal with that. You already have potentially discard traps or draw traps or ways to ignore it, like Dust Shoot, Solemn, that sort of thing. It doesn't really serve a purpose. It can remove an Absolute Zero, but then that's going to blow up your Battle Recruiter all the same, so there's really no reason to do that over just like Stars plus Enemy Controller or more like Steal effects that can just take the Absolute Zero and then kill. Yeah, D-Prison is just not very good in this deck in general. It's like not good against Glads. It's like fine against Blackwings, but you should already be kind of like favored into Blackwings because they're just triggering your recruiters. So it's just a matter of like defending your recruiters with like Road, Decree, that sort of thing. And then post board, like you can size stuff like Consecrated Light or whatever. But yeah, D-Prison's not really good in this deck, even into the 2 best decks that, not 2 best decks, but 2 decks that it's the best against, which is like Glads and Blackwings. And then against other decks, like against Vayu Turbo, it's like pretty mid, especially post board. Against like Frogs, it's not good, like straight up. So definitely a build issue. Trap Dust Shoot is going to be great here, though. It's going to hit the Substitoad. Bottomless Trap Hole is probably going to be picked up by this Heavy Storm. There's really no way around it. So there goes the Substitoad. Here comes Rhoda for Stratos. And Summon Stratos. No Summon Stratos. So set Heavy Storm makes sense. This is like the most obvious set Heavy Storm of all time. You wouldn't set Dust Tornado here. Like you would just set Heavy Storm here because you're always Heavy Storming before you Dust Tornado. Here comes an attack for 17. That's always going through. If you're Sir Charlie, you should just set nothing here. Like Bottomless is going to hit the Stratos. And if it doesn't hit the Stratos, like let's say he Dust Tornadoes it, then you can set the Skill Drain to bait the Heavy Storm, and then you can set the Deep Prison afterward to pick up the Stratos later. You also have Brain Control, so the Resolve Stratos is not that big of a deal, and Mizuki hitting the grave is not that big of a deal. Overall, though, I've also found Mask of Restrict to be pretty bad in zombies, and also against Frog Hero as well. They're pretty well positioned to not care about Mask of Restrict post-board. Like, it's usually going to trade with 1 or 2 cards in their hand, or it's just going to meet a spot removal and just trade 1 for 1 the same way any other back row would. But it doesn't really progress your game plan, and it cucks your Caiuses, which are like kind of the best cards in the matchup outside of like specifically Book of Life. So you're kind of like playing a conflicting game plan where you struggle more. I'm not a big fan of these cards. I love Skill Drain, but just not in this matchup. Like, just in general in this matchup. And I don't think Mask of Restrict is particularly better than Zombie World in this deck. It is good against the Frog combo deck. It is good against those decks, but I think that you have enough tools between like DD Crow and that sort of thing where you can diversify your threats and not have to play multiple floodgates that actually kind of screw you over as well. Here comes a Heavy Storm that's going to pick up the Bottomless and the Mask of Restrict. Here comes normal Stratos. Stratos is going to search the ocean. Yeah, that was a very obvious set Heavy Storm there. Stratos just runs over the Mizuki, and at this point, it's looking tough. It's looking tough. And what's crazy is like Sir Charlie resolved to Trap Dust Shoot going first, and he's full down 3 cards. Like, that's why these cards are they're just a little too narrow and a little too reactive for what the zombie deck is trying to do. You really have to focus in on your game plan. And I'm going to talk about this more in the next replay I want to show you guys, but like, what is my game plan? Is my game plan to deprison and bottomless my opponent and like stop them from summoning their beaters? Or is my game plan to get my engine online and then overwhelm them with powerful synchro monsters and have as many cards possible dedicated to that? I think that if you start to build zombies more in that fashion, start to build it more in that like, I have Book of Lives, I have Instant Fusions, I have just a bunch of extenders. I don't really need to remove monsters because I've got Dark End and Bryonic. And then if their monsters are attacking me, then that's great. I have the Battle Recruiters who benefit from that. And all my cards kind of float anyway, so it's not that big of a deal if my guys are getting run over. And then you've got Dark Armed as well, and Brain Control plus Mind Control to like take monsters. You don't really need these spot removal cards. I think it's like, I think it's a sub-optimization. Obviously, I've been saying that the entire video. But it just... Yeah, you see the point here. You see the point of why you don't really want this against Hero Frogs. You see the point of like Deep Prison maybe not being the best here. Here comes set 3. You should set 3 here to insulate the Deep Prison. Maybe even set 4 because this is tough. You should Deep Prison the Stratos here. Yep, makes the ocean worse. And now Sir Charlie's still in this game, but he has functional 1 card to 6, which is going to be really hard to beat. So here comes set Treeborn Frog. There's a Rhoda off the top, so that does find him his Stratos if he wanted to go for it. I'm a little bit surprised he didn't. Yeah, I don't know why he didn't go for the Rhoda and the Stratos here. Maybe he knows about... Does he know about Brain Control? Or Soul Exchange? I think Rhoda for Stratos is probably something you want to get going as soon as possible. I'm not really certain why he did that. Anyway, here comes normal Ocean attacks. What's interesting about the Hero Frog deck is you'll notice its common play patterns, especially when breaking, are pretty similar to like Fair decks. I think this deck kind of encapsulated the Hero Beat style deck because it plays similar to Hero Beat in almost every single way if you're thinking in terms of function. You're looking to normal summon your guys, get a little bit of value out of your guys, set some back row, and win the game through beating your opponent down. So because that's like the average play pattern here, cards like Skill Drain are actually not optimized because they don't deal with the beatdown aspect of the deck, and then they also don't deal with like the little bit of back row aspect of the deck. They're not really engaging with much here, as you can tell. So this is why I talked about it in the sideboard guide, which is members only. But yeah, if you play test this matchup, which you should if you're entering a tournament like this one, because it's a very common matchup, you should start to recognize like some of these cards that they're not the best here. Rhoda should have found Stratos to run over this Ocean. I mean, he's now taking 3,000 damage. They just didn't need to take. More monsters are hitting the field for Cold Madness. There's a top deck Fossil Dyna. Fossil Dyna is better against Hero Frog, but you have to position yourself where you have the threat. If you have the threat plus the Fossil Dyna, then you're crushing. But Skill Drain plus Fossil Dyna is just, it just doesn't make sense to be siding like this. I also don't really love Fossil Dyna in the zombie decks unless you're also on Giant Rat. I'm much bigger fan of Vanity's Fiend, because look at Vanity's Fiend here. You brain control the Ocean, you sack for Vanity's Fiend. All of a sudden, you're kind of winning this game. Like, you actually just are dominating. So, yeah, Vanity's Fiend, generally better than Dyna. It's really easy to get the extra bodies in Zombie between Instant Fusion, Mizuki, Book of Life, all those cards. It's also really easy if you're, like, just have, like, a Malicious in the grave or a Plague in the grave or something like that. It's really easy to get the body. And Vanity's Fiend is just a better card. Like, it's just stronger. Dyna can answer a resolved board, but you shouldn't have too much difficulty answering resolved boards with zombies because all of your synchro monsters pop things or bounce things or whatever. Here finally comes out Rhoda for Stratos. Stratos is going to be normal summon, search Malicious. We're going to run over the Ocean here. Makes sense. In phase 2, pass the turn. Here comes Brain Control. Double Miracle is now in the hand from Cold Madness. You're kind of just like coasting at this point. You've drawn nothing but power this game. Rhoda, Heavy Storm, Brain Control, Miracle have been used as the only cards. Here comes Brain Control on Absolute Zero. That's going to run over the Dupe. Dupe's going to search the swap. Tribute set Malicious is most likely coming. Yep. Malicious is going to get popped by the Absolute Zero there. And you've got Solemn Judgment, but that puts you down to 1150 because you took 3,000 off that Ocean that you really didn't need to take. Tries to set another monster. Can't do that because normal summon was already used on Malicious. Here comes Dust Tornado, hitting the middle set because I think he knows that the other two aren't live based off of the play patterns. Miracle Fusion, Chain Space Typhoon to hit a potential bottomless. Here comes the Absolute Zero. Tax for game. So, classic. Yeah, Miracle Fusion in the hand as well. It's just clunky. I don't think this style of deck is where you want to be at all in Edison format in 2025. I think that this looks like a completely outdated version of the deck, also with like a sub-optimized sideboard plan. Like I said, if you want to play zombies, check out my guide on it recently. I think Extension plus, Extension is the best way to play zombies because they have the best extenders. They have Book of Life, they have Instant Fusion, they have Mizuki, they have Burial, they have Return, they have Call of the Haunted, they have Dad, they have all these different ways to special summon, like Illblood, Zombie Master if you want to play it, Plague extends from the grave, Diva gets you 2 tuners, Emergency Teleport. The deck is built to play as like an extend OTK style deck. Playing it this back row style way, you're just going to get beat up by literally anyone who knows how to play in a back row, like Cold Madness here. But cool match, cool tournament match. They were both X1 at this point. I think they were both 3-1. This was a game for 4-1. The next match I want to show you guys is a 4-1 match, which is going to be Javi versus Sands. Javi's playing a really, really cool build, which I think does the exact opposite of what Sir Charlie's build does. It takes a deck that otherwise has pretty severe weaknesses and then improves on those weaknesses. So like what's happening here is he's playing Gladiator Beasts. I'll show you a little bit more of his build as the game goes on. He's playing against fucking Vayu Turbo. Vayu Turbo is what he's playing against. And what he's done is he's taken Gladiator Beasts and just hyper optimized it in a way that's really cool. He's got the Upstart Goblins. Upstart Goblin acts as like a way to thin towards your power cards. Heavy Storm Gorse, Rescue Cat, Prisma Tiger, of course, and stuff like Cold Wave, Chariot turn 1 being live, Solemn Judgment is a huge power card in Glads, and Trap Dust Shoot. So you just want to sort of dig to those power cards to help support your core engine. So Upstart Goblin's going to be first, set Hoplimus, pass the turn. Here comes Sands. At this point in the tournament, they probably know what each other's playing, so he probably knows that this is a Hoplimus. That being said, I still think this is one of the better plays you can make, which is just Greffer, Roko, Armed Wing attack, because this plays through Hamster pretty nicely. So it's going to run over Hoplimus. Dark Greffer is going to attack for 17. Gores is going to get dropped for sure. Yep, looks like Gores is getting dropped here. And there is a Deep Prison to deal with the Gores, but this Gores is going to get a nice 2-for-1. So, yeah, power card that you want to find off Upstart. Upstart to dig into the power cards. Makes perfect sense. Draw here is going to be Compulsory Evacuation Device. So there's a lot of stuff you have to think about here from Javi's perspective. You have to think about Mirror Force, you have to think about Deep Prison, you have to think about potential Caius or Plague follow-up. So in the case of those things, one interesting thing to note is Sans is on main deck Royal Oppression. That's something that's not super common, but I think players are trending a bit more towards it because it's so good against the rising popularity of Glads, rising popularity of certain combo decks like Gigavice, the Frog combo, and potentially zombies. I really do think that we should see more zombies into this Value Turbo metagame because the extension version of zombies is so good against Value Turbo as long as you can dodge back-breaking deck Devastation Virus. But yeah, Compulsory is a great draw here because it does deal with that Armed Wing in case the Gores gets removed. So Javi's like, okay, I can 1-for-1 my Gores into a Mirror Force. That's something we can do here. I can go for a Prisma Tiger play, but the Prisma Tiger play here is like not that good. He could go for just a normal summon a quest, Test Tiger into Murmillo style deal. Check the back row there for all sorts of things, but that might run into Torrential Tribute, so he might be a little bit more passive on that. He also maybe doesn't want to summon his Quest into Bottomless. I think I might summon the Quest here, but it does get you a little bit more fucked into Mirror Force than you need to be. So he makes an interesting play of just switch token attack. He's like, okay, Mirror Force is going to 1-for-1 me. That's fine. That's as much as I want to give up to a Mirror Force, which is understandable. Bestiary being in hand is really awkward because it means he can't Prisma Tiger. So the token's going to crash with the Dark Greffer. Gores is going to run into a Deep Prison here. So now from this point, you're like, okay, Deep Prison is used on the Gores. I have set Bestiary, set Compulsory. This is not the end of the world into a Caius, but it does mean you're going to be taking a lot of damage into a Caius. And it's also not that bad into a normal summon Plague Spreader because Compulsory does deal with Stardust Dragon. So set the back row. The draw's another Deep Prison. Like I said, I don't think Deep Prison is really all that against Gladiator Beasts. I know back in 2021 we talked about the effectiveness of Battle Traps against Glads. It really depends on the build. But against Javi's build, the Prisma builds, Deep Prison is significantly worse because they're just going to main phase 1 Geyseris you. So that's kind of what's happening here. Armed Wing is going to get sacked for Caius. Something Javi could have done is just compulse the Armed Wing draw phase. He could have done that. Should he have done that? Maybe. Why would you not do that? The reason you would not maybe do that is because it opens you up to normal summon Sirocco, which is a possibility. There are as many Siroccos as there are Caiuses here. It opens you up to possibly... I don't really know what else really punishes you. Deck Devastation Virus also comes to mind. So, yeah, it could be Deck Devastation Virus, and it could be... I think that's really it. It's like Deck Devastation Virus and maybe Normal Summon Sirocco. But Normal Summon Sirocco you're probably just fine with because you have the Tiger Comeback play. Whether it's Tiger Quest or Tiger Prisma. So... yeah, I think this ends up really biting him that he didn't compulse this because now Caius gets activated. He can compulse his own Bestiary. He's basically forced to do that. But now he has to take another full turn off. He's exposing himself to potential another Caius. But then Sans sets 2 more back row and passes the turn back. Javi has the Test Tiger but is correctly waiting for an opportunity to activate that. And he has some really good top decks still left in his deck. Namely another Upstart Goblin for a redraw. And then he's also playing 3 copies of Gladiator Beast Respite, I'm not sure how to pronounce that card, and 3 copies of Reckless Greed. So he has a lot of redraws towards a Heavy Storm or a Cold Wave, so saving the Test Tiger makes a lot of sense, plus you just need to get that bestie in the grave. Sans picks up a copy of Vayu, the Emblem of Honor. Holding that Vayu is something that Javi can take note of here. Caius is going to run over the Bestiary. Bestiary hits the grave. Draw for turn is that Heavy Storm. So even though Javi does get really lucky here and finds a Heavy Storm, he actually has another 8 redraws towards it. And then he also has, I'm assuming, Trune Cold Wave as well, because he's playing just bombs and draw spells and Prisma combo. So there's the Heavy Storm. That's just going to walk. It's going to completely obliterate Javi's back row here. Had Javi had one more guy in the grave, he could have gone for game, and had this value been a little bit stronger, he could have gone for game with that return last turn, but he was just a little shy there. Normal Prisma send Laquari is interesting, but it makes sense. He wants to deck thin that Laquari, get it out of the deck, potentially set up for an E-Quest, add back that Laquari to build his draw engine. Geyseris is going to come down here. That's going to get tagged out. This also means he can go for Heraclinos. He's going to go Darius, Rediari. Rediari banish the Armed Wing, tag back into Heraclinos in defense position. I'm not really certain why he goes for Heraclinos in defense position versus attack position, but I think the big reason is he's scared of maybe Dark Monster Crash special summon Dad. So I think that is something he's considering, and I think it's a really heads-up play to make his Heraclinos in defense. There isn't really much else that's getting over 2,800 that wouldn't get over 3,000, unless Sans finds a way to make Colossal Fighter, I think is the only way. That would really punish Javi here, but it's pretty difficult to make Colossal Fighter with just 2 cards from Vayu Turbo's perspective. And my phone is ringing. Who is texting me? I do not know. All right, moving on. Yeah, and it's much more likely that third Dark Crash into Dark Armed is happening here. Set Vayu, set Solemn. Now, Javi knows that had this monster been in Sans hand on the last turn, it would have been set. And had this back row been in Sans hand last turn, it would have been set. So Javi can deduce from this position that the monster was in Sans hand last turn. He chose not to set it until this turn, and can deduce that it's most likely not a Raikou from that sort of logical reasoning. There's a chance that it's not, but you can say most likely that this set monster is not a Raikou. It's like a Necrogardna, a Plague, something that is going to prevent you from instantly losing the game. So here comes normal summon Samnite. That's going to be met with Solemn Judgment, and that's going to further confirm Javi's suspicions that this is probably not a Raikou. So he switches the Heraclinos, attacks over the Vayu, and now there are 3 Darks. So Dark Arm Dragon is a live top deck here, and there's nothing Javi can do about that. Dark Arm Dragon is just going to come down and crush. It makes you wonder whether or not he should have gone wide off of the Darius play, but there wasn't really a great way to establish that either. So I think just going into the Heraclinos and just saying, okay, you better have your 1 or 2 outs, otherwise this Heraclinos is going to go the distance, is smart. Top deck found is Armageddon Knight, and while Armageddon Knight can send a Necrogardna, it's pretty clear Javi's hand includes another monster, and that's just going to be checkmate from that perspective because Dad is no longer going to be online. So, yeah, moving on into game 2. We're going to see a little bit more of Javi's deck. This is a really interesting deck, and I want to talk about it because this is a deck that I prepared to face against. I had heard from Ryan that he was playing this type of build at the PPG 5K and in that area because I believe he's from the Texas area. And I built specifically my deck to go to the PPG 5K with his deck in mind. I was like, if I have to face against this deck, it's going to be the hardest matchup in the field. And there's a good chance I'll have to face against Javi if I start winning. So that's why I started to main deck the main deck Prime material. That's why I was main decking the draw traps. That's why I was main decking like stuff like the Royal Decree to deal with stuff like Reckless Greed. And that's why I was on like the instant fusions and stuff like that. I felt like that was going to be the best into Gladiator Beast, but specifically Javi's Gladiator Beast. So I actually do think his deck improves a lot upon the average Gladiator Beast deck because it's going to consistently see its power thanks to the draw. And it has a really interesting spammable draw engine with Respite under Reckless Greed. So like if your Reckless Greed resolves, normally you're like, fuck, I'm draw locked. But in this deck, if you have Respite and Reckless, you can Respite, shuffle guys back, draw new cards, Reckless into some more cards, and once that Respite's in the graveyard, any Glad connecting is just going to get you that Respite back, so you can keep drawing every single turn under Reckless lock. So I found that to be really, really interesting. Having a spammable, basically reusable draw step under Reckless is really cool and really intelligent deck building from Javi. So here comes the Lure on turn 1, setting up a pretty insane hand here. He's got Heavy Storm, he's got Barrel, he's got Charge. Pretty hard to lose with a hand like this, if you ask me. This is going to be Charge Light Brigade. Hits a Sirocco on top of that, which is insane. Normal Grepher, I'm assuming. Pitch Sirocco, send the Vayu. You could make an argument to set Raikou here, and I actually think that that argument would be pretty correct. You want to mill while you have the highest density of mill targets in your deck. But maybe he's a little bit nervous and just wants to get the pressure into play under something like possible Bottomless Trap Hole. Here comes set Bottomless Trap Hole. He doesn't actually bring back the Armed Wing. I think that that is a really, really big misplay. Against the deck that plays Rediari, against the deck that plays Laquari, you really, really, really need to get the Armed Wing in play. Obviously, he does have that Burial to put it back, so maybe he's like hoping to force a Rediari, then Burial stuff back, but there's really no reason to just give up your Armed Wing that you're going to have free of cost here. Here comes Upstart Goblin. That's going to activate before the Test Tiger. And then Gladiator Beast Respite is found, and that's going to be played here as well. It is a little dangerous because he's shuffling back both his Glads, which would set up his hand here, and he's already Heavy Stormed. If I was Javi, I actually probably would have Upstart Goblin here first before Heavy Storming, because then he has more draws that like inform him on whether or not he wants to Heavy Storm a lone back row here or not. Respite being one of them. Because now if he just doesn't draw another Glad, he wasted his Heavy Storm for no reason. I know the not anticipation, but like the hesitance to burn the Upstart before the Heavy Storm is always going to be Trap Dust Shoot. But your hand already has like high value Trap Dust Shoot targets in Test Tiger. So you're getting burned by Trap Dust Shoot anyway. You might as well just Upstart Goblin first and then see if you want a Heavy Storm after. So I think there's a little bit of a missequencing there from Javi in this game. Respite's going to activate, and he's actually not going to find another Glad. So he's actually going to get super punished. He's not going to be able to Heavy Storm later in the game, but he did find another Power Sweeper in Cold Wave, so it's not the end of the world. Smashing Ground's going to clear the Dark Grepher, and then Call of the Haunted is going to get set to prepare for maybe a pretty big turn on the next turn of the game. Dad is drawn. This is going to be a classic Burial Dad situation. The Armed Wing not being in play doesn't end up mattering. There was no Rediari found. The Armed Wing gets special summoned, Dad gets special summoned, and Burial's going to put crazy pressure on. There goes Armed Wing attack for 23, 23, and then Dad for 28. Set the Raikou, pass the turn. There really isn't much here that's gonna work out for Javi. He can tag the Bestiary into Murmillo, attack into the set monster, and hope it's not a Raikou. That's kind of like his only bets. There's Secutor, same thing. He's just kind of praying it's not a Raikou. It is a Raikou, and then we're going to go to the next game. Naturally, Sans wouldn't set anything there that wasn't a Raikou. Hamster also would have been sided out against Glads. Most likely, I think Hamster is like not the best against Glads. So yeah, that's going to be the game. I think that whole game was decided on Javi not Upstart Goblining before his Heavy Storm. So a little bit of draw sequencing stuff. Definitely a little bit of an optimization could have been made there. This game, we get to see Javi's draw engine on full display, though. He's got Respite and he's got Reckless Greed, so we're going to see this deck really start to pop off. Respite's going to shuffle back the Bestiary and the Aquest, and you can see he's already got 3 incredibly powerful cards. Let's see if he can find a little bit more. Draws 3 new cards. Some more Glads, but that's part of the course. Getting Respite in the graveyard is really what you care about here. Sets the Hoplimus, sets 2, passes a turn back, and here comes Trap Dust Shoot. So Trap Dust Shoot's going to be able to take this Sirocco. I don't know if I would have taken Sirocco here from Sans. I might have taken something else. Let's see. Yeah, I might have taken Dad. Yeah, I might have taken Dad, because he like commits the Sirocco, and then he like can't attack, and then on your turn you can like Reckless into Wave into like fucking own him. But I guess you can't get over the Sirocco with what you have, because you no longer have the Bestie. You're hoping to hit something in the next 3 cards to deal with that Sirocco. The thing is just like if he has Sirocco, is he not attacking? Is he not like playing it and attacking? Like, is he just holding it? How does that work? I don't know how that works. Here comes set Mirror Force past the turn. Second Reckless is found, so the draw engine is cooking. And Tiger's also found. So there were a lot of great draws here that Javi could have seen that would have allowed him to out the Sirocco, but keeping him on a dead Dark Arm Dragon is also probably not bad either. I guess you can just spam Rediari and it's all the same. Can go ahead and just special, tag into Bestiari, pop the back row, swing, swing, Equest back the Respite, and he's just dominating in terms of card advantage. So there's Equest back the Respite, And then the Samnite could go into Bestiardi, and he could put a Geyserus up, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But I think he's going to go into a Laquari and just be kind of on soft pressure that way. Respite's going to return a few more guys. Cold Wave wasn't played, so these back row are going to get a chance to shine. And he's going to find Upstart Goblin plus Cyber Dragon. I'm interested as to why he's cited Cyber Dragon in this matchup going first, but maybe it's just a card that he includes as a one-of to like Prisma, contact away a card trooper or something like that. So here comes Upstart Goblin, finds another Test Tiger, and yeah, set, probably pass. Looks like just a lone set of the Reckless Greed, doesn't feel the need to set the Typhoon, which is understandable in case there's a draw in Heavy Storm. Sirocco gets redrawn. The Laquari is 2100 here, so it can't get over that. It can get over the Equest. That's going to happen. Sets the Dust Tornado, and then end phase is going to be a Reckless Greed use here. So draws 2, and then Reckless Greed is going to be, they don't stack. So like basically you only still skip the next 2 draw phases. So he's drawn 4 cards. He skips the next 2 draw phases. It's not bad. Typhoon can pick off the Dust Tornado, and then yeah, things can just spiral out of control because that's going to be another Equest on the Respite, and he can just keep drawing more and more cards and taking over the game. So building a really, really sick draw engine here, and Solemn Judgment is going to probably be nailing the coffin. But yeah, there's Grepher, going to be met with Solemn, passes a turn back. The cool thing about this draw engine is that it means you're going to be seeing your power, your Solemn, your Typhoons, your Dust Shoots, your Gores, your Tigers. You're not going to be drawing any of the chaff filler that's in a lot of Glad decks. You're just seeing your bombs, which is honestly a way to win more games. Here comes Tiger into Secutor, and a massive pushback. This is just going to be a huge amount of card advantage here. He could have gone a Quest, get back Respite again, honestly, but he decides to go for Ready R to keep the graveyard clear for that Dark Arm Dragon. Makes sense, and Laquari to tag maybe into Heraclinos yet again. This Equest is going to tag into Hoplimus, and there's the Heraclinos in defense. The draw for turn is Plague Spreader. Sands is now locked under Cold Wave. He's staring down a bunch of difficult threats to deal with. Sets the Vayu. Ready R is the draw, and that's actually lethal damage if Javier recognizes that's probably the Vayu that was in hand, and Ready R can attack here. So normal's the Ready R, switches to 2, and Hoplimus tags over the Vayu, and that's going to be the game. So really cool deck from Javi. I think he's currently X1 in the tournament. He's probably positioned to make top cut with this really sweet version of Gladiator Beast. And I think this does the exact opposite of like what we saw with the Diva Zombie deck in the last one, where it's like you take a deck that that exists in Edison format, you really dial in on what it is the deck wants to do. What is it that Gladiator Beast wants to do? It wants to resolve Secutor. It wants to have spammable advantage engine with Equest. It wants to have consistent Geyserus access. It wants to be able to amass card advantage and just take over the game with your super Omni Negate Heraclinos. Those are like the big things that the deck wants to do. Yes, there are like soft locks, like Chariot locks, that sort of thing that are like fine, and then there's like little chip damage games you can play here and there. But this really dials in on, I'm going to have an incredibly over-the-top powerful deck that has really strong combos, really consistent access to those combos, and has a really smooth card advantage engine. And I think that that's going to play well, especially when you're consistently seeing your power into most of the decks in the format, a little bit more than the decks that are just like overloading on like trap stuns and just hoping to get there. So really cool stuff. The chainable back row is really cool too. It makes it so that you're not weak to back row removal as much as the average Glide deck usually is. So overall, really, really sweet way to approach this strategy and like make it more optimal and make it more, how do I say this, more efficient at accomplishing its plan. And I think that there's ways to optimize a lot of decks in Edison format to this degree and like make them more efficient at executing their plan. Javi's found a really cool way of doing it. I'm excited to see if he tops. If you guys want to see if he tops, make sure to check out Crow's Nest Yu-Gi-Oh! For the recap of this tournament. And once again, next weekend, a week from today, is RBET Santa Clara. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a banger. More RBET announcements are coming next week. Chicago is sold out, but I'm announcing something for the week before Chicago. So it won't be in Chicago, but it'll be the week before Chicago for all of the players. I've had about 100 players reach out to me for waitlist at Chicago. There will be another tournament that same time of the year that you guys can prep for, that I am currently in the process of finalizing. And yeah, we're gonna try to do as many RBETs as possible. I have some announcements coming this week. This one's gonna be incredible. Santa Clara is gonna be a banger. California events are always awesome, but this one's gonna be really special because it is at the Collectors Expo. So make sure and get your tickets before it's sold out. There's only, like I said, about 30 more spots left in this tournament. I'll see you guys in the next vid. Peace.